Good afternoon, colleagues. It is such a pleasure to see so many people in the session today. Welcome to our first Transformation Learning Network session for 2025. It's probably too late at the end of the second month to be wishing everybody a happy 2025, but may the rest of 2025 be wonderful for all of you. A positive experience here at Stellenbosch University. We have many new and exciting things happening at our institute this year, and not least of all, the upcoming Transformation Learning Network sessions that will be happening up until the end of October. So today's session is presented by a very new center, but old people. I'm not old people. Oh, okay, I'm old, but older people, people who have been here at the institution for a while. So I don't know, how do I put that? Yeah, we've been here a while. We're not all old. And we have unified as a center, social impact and transformation, and we are now known as CASIT, the Center for the Advancement of Social Impact and Transformation. So you may also give us a hand of applause, if you don't mind, to our new unified center. Okay, so thank you, everybody. You're such team players. Again, welcome. I would like to introduce to you today co-presenters, Dr. Leslie van Rooy, who is the Senior Director for the Center for the Advancement of Social Impact and Transformation, and our Director, Dr. Zethu Mkhize, at the Center for Social Impact, for the Advancement of Social Impact and Transformation. Siobhan, who is our Communications Manager, and Sibulele, who's our Communications person, will be watching the chat and sharing some interactive stuff for us to enjoy as well. So if we talk about transformation at Stellenbosch University, I think by now everybody knows that transformation is a systemic thing that we do at Stellenbosch University, that while we have this center at our institution, transformation also remains the responsibility of everybody at the institution. And transformation refers to, as Behet has described it, a distinct type of change that involves intentional and systematic processes away from an abnormal state of social relations, such as that exists as a legacy of apartheid in higher education and wider society, towards new social relations, institutions, policies, and practices. So with this in mind, we look at the program that we have for today, where we will be explaining about why transformation is now a key performance area for all staff members at the university. I would like everybody to ask everybody if you could post your questions in the chat as the session goes along, but we are going to respond to questions and have a discussion at the end of the session. We should complete the presentation around about 1:30, 2 at the latest, I think. And then we have until 2:30 for discussion, questions and answers. I do realize that very often, because of classes, people leave at 2 o'clock. So if you know that you have to leave by 2 p.m., please try to pose your question or your comment for discussion early on. So Dr. Leslie van Rooy will take you through the update on the transformation policy, and Dr. Mkhize will do that, and also speak to you about the transformation as a mandatory KPA. Dr. Van Roy will speak about the SU values, and then I will go on to speak about how the job levels and the libraries or the baskets are progressing and what that means for all levels of staff. So with that, I'm going to give over to Zethu Mkhize, who will speak to you on how far we are with the transformation policy and the transformation plan.
Thank you very much, Jean, for that introduction. We are here today, colleagues, to look into the developments in relation to the Transformation KPA. But it is very much significant for us to understand where we are coming from as an institution and what positive strides that we have made and how did we get ourselves where we have a transformation policy. I believe that we all understand the transformation at Stellenbosch started more than 2 decades ago. However, the recent developments that culminated in the development of the transformation policy were informed by a need for the review of a 2017 transformation plan. The plan had come full circle and there was a need for the plan to be reviewed. At a time when we had to start the process of reviewing the plan, there was a decision of the Rectorate, which was specific in that in reviewing the plan, there has to be 2 outcomes. There has to be a transformation policy and a transformation plan. A transformation policy was very much significant in that it elevates transformation to being a council priority. In other words, transformation is now a strategic issue for the institution. And secondly, it was significant for us to come up with a policy, as Jean has alluded to earlier on, that much as we as a center are advancing social impact and transformation, transformation is a responsibility of every official of this institution. It is also a responsibility of every student at Stellenbosch University. The policy that has since been developed introduces us to a further phase of transformation at Stellenbosch. We are now getting into a different path in reaffirming commitment of Stellenbosch University in as far as transformation is concerned. We believe that through the implementation of the policy provisions, Stellenbosch University would aspire to increase equity, to increase inclusion, to increase access and succession. That is the reason why we came up with this new SU definition of what transformation is. Transformation at SU is described as a process of perpetual and profound. We are mindful that transformation is a process. Transformation has to be entrenched and encapsulated into the processes of the institution. We are saying transformation has to be profound. Transformation has to be intentional. That is why it is significant that once the transformation policy has been accepted, signed off by council, there has to be a plan which actually ensures the implementation of those strategic priorities as outlined in the policy. We are mindful that it has to be structured and it has to be comprehensive Comprehensive in the sense that we look into those 3 pillars. The processes have to transform. We look into the people, they have to be transformed. And also we look into the place, it has to be transformed. We are saying transformation implies a comprehensive and an inclusive scope of transformation as reflected by the 8 dimensions. So we're taking into cognizance those 8 dimensions that are identified by the Times Higher Education, namely the transformation of the institution. We must be mindful that Stellenbosch is a historically white university. And as a historically white university, there are certain elements which described the Stellenbosch University that was established 100+ years ago. Now we are getting into a different trajectory where the transformation of the institution as a place has to take place. We are taking into cognizance that talent, there has to be transformation of talent within the university. And we can never be able to achieve that unless we look into the various categories of individuals, irrespective of their place of birth, irrespective of their race, irrespective of their religion, as long as they have the talent that will enable Stellenbosch to advance towards attaining its Vision 2040. We are also looking into the issues of internationalization, and we are mindful that as an institution, there is that contestation between transformation and internationalization. And what is it that we can bring in between as the university to ensure that we achieve our vision and the mission? Teaching and learning, it has to be definitely transformed, being mindful that the theoretical frameworks that we used in the various disciplines are more informed by the West. What about the global South? There has to be a gradual infusion of the theoretical frameworks from the global South in terms of our teaching and learning. What about our social impact, the student experience? How, to what extent do we allow students to be who they are in the space? To what extent do we allow students to bring with themselves into a lecture theater, bring with themselves their cultural beings in a lecture theater? Those are all the kinds of issues that we will be embracing going into the future. It is for that reason that we have come up with the 6 objectives. Objective number 1 is student diversity. Whilst the country upheld the notion of massification more than 20 years ago, the truth is that as an institution in particular, we haven't made positive strides in as far as the diversification of our student population is concerned. So this is one of the objectives that we are going to be aspiring for going into the future, specifically for the next 5 years. These objectives are objectives that will inform our transformation plan, which is at the present moment in its infancy stages. The second objective is in relation to the staff diversity. The director EE will agree with me that we are doing very well in some environments. That quota of 55-45 has well been attained. But another side of the coin is that we see the diversified staff in the lack of a better word, the rank and file. We don't see that diversification when we look into the upper echelons of the various responsibility center and faculties. The third one is transformation competency. That is what we will be talking to today. There was a decision of council a couple of years ago, let me say many years ago, it was even before we started the process of reviewing or rather developing the policy, a decision was made that a transformation competency, rather a transformation KPA, must have a weighting of between 20 and 25. So there is a need for the staff at Stellenbosch to be transformed in terms of how they are rendering their services. Processes have to be transformed to ensure that the student who comes to the university is a student who gains a particular experience. And when they leave the university, they are ready for the market. They are ready to be engaged citizens. That is what we'll be talking about this afternoon. The next one is a universal access. We shouldn't be looking into universal access in a myopic way by looking at it from an impediment, physical impediment kind of a lens, but we should also look into the cultural aspects as well, because we want Stellenbosch University to be a university of choice for students and to be the employer of choice for the members of staff. The fifth one is academic transformation. I've alluded to that earlier on in terms of the theoretical frameworks that inform our disciplines, but also in terms of the various methodologies that we use when we are teaching in class. To what extent do we incorporate the views that students are bringing on board? When students are in a classroom situation, to what extent do we allow them to objectively criticize whatever is presented before them? The last one is a broad-based Black economic empowerment. We have been found wanting as an organization to be very much lacking behind in terms of this objective. And we are saying going into the future, we need to focus on this transformation objective as well. Colleagues, we have a transformation policy. It was signed off by Council in December 2024. The policy will be accessible to all of you by early next week. Thank you, Chin.
Thank you very much, Zetu, for explaining that. I would like to now ask Siobhan. Thank you, Siobhan. I see that you are sharing your screen. And yeah, if you could explain the process, that would be great. We'd like everybody to please try to engage with this part of the session.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So in front of us, we have a Mentimeter. And based on what we have just heard with regards to the objectives, we are asking that you consider your role and that you would rate the 6 objectives or rank it rather in the order that you think is from most to least for your role. So to do it, on the top, there's a Menti code. If you could just go to menti.com, enter the code. You can use your smartphone or you can use your laptop to go to the Menti. And as you put in your options, you just drag it and then it will start to show. So as you complete it, we'll start to see. We have about 4 minutes to do so. That's all from my side for now. Thank you. So that's 5 submissions already, 6. It's coming in. Thank you very much. So in the lead at the moment, student diversity, closely followed by academic transformation. We have about 3 more minutes. Currently, I have 55 responses. Thank you for the participation thus far. Now halfway.
So lovely to see the engagement, yeah.
Absolutely.
And there are no right or wrong answers. We realize that depending on what your roles are, you would have transformation competencies. And for this audience, that is fourth. But for you, it was your first choice that you rated that first. It doesn't matter. It really depends on the audience in the room. And we are going to explain how that conversation will take place between you and your line manager.
We have about 2 more minutes.
Jean and colleagues, I wonder if I shouldn't continue in the meantime, and then we can share the outcome a little bit later.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, Leslie. So, colleagues, as we know, the transformation policy had been accepted in December 2024, and as Zetu explained, it should be circulated. The final document should be circulated soon, and during 2025, we will be working on the transformation plan. I suppose I have to share my screen again so that Leslie can see where he's at. Thank you very much for that, Siobhan. If you can just give me a moment while my PowerPoint loads. And Leslie will be speaking to us on the SU values.
Manage. Thank you,
Over
Jean.
to
I
you.
wonder if
Over to
you
you.
cannot. Thank you very much. I wonder if you perhaps can go one slide back. I want to focus on this slide for our colleagues. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here. It is indeed a big crowd. The crowd, of course, gives an indication of the interest for a particular topic, and I know that the topic of transformation KPAs have high interest for a number of reasons. One, it has come a long way, long discussion since Council's mandate to the university management to implement transformation KPAs as part of our work agreements and as part of how we're evaluated as colleagues. And we will also share something, Jean, about the 20-25% and in relation to the process that's about to kick off. Secondly, I want to acknowledge that these type of conversations do not take place in a void. At a university, things change rapidly within a 24-hour cycle. And colleagues, you would know that over the last couple of days, we have seen student protests, and you would have also seen developments around Wilgenhof. I want to acknowledge that. We also sit with a variety of understandings and experiences linked to our university, especially when it comes to something like transformation. And then thirdly, and this is why I asked Jean to stop here, Zet has given an excellent overview of the coming about of a transformation policy. and that we must link to the policy, work towards a plan. And then she focused on what you see here as the 6 transformation objectives. Now, in essence, colleagues, and thank you very much for those of you who Mentimeter vote currently. In essence, the 6 objectives will be the 6 KPAs. So as we will explain later, and you will exercise a couple of these KPAs, these will be the mandated objectives that will be described as essentially the transformation-focused KPA, with 6 possible elements, well, not possible elements, with 6 elements that will be basketed or KPI'd as part of our processes, and this we will explain. So these are quite important. It was important for Zeta to share where they come from, and as a note, colleagues, this is then what will be packaged as the transformation KPA, and the reason for this session is for us to explain that. Thank you very much, Jean. Now, you will see in the next slide that the processes, the broader performance enhancement process, and in particular then the transformation KPA process, will focus also on the university's values as a way to guide our processes, as a way to make sense of our work, as a way to reflect on our experiences and our work, and therefore elements of the value sense making around the values, etc., will be included in the process. At the stage, we will do rounds to all of the faculties as part of the broader performance enhancement process. We will explain how the values will be folded into the process, how they can be evaluated, how they can be used as part of a reflecting point. I think for now it is to note that the process around transformation KPAs, percentages, the nature of the process, and how it will be basketed will also be linked to our values. You know the values very well, colleagues. I think I just wanted to note that that is part of the conversation as well, and that we will indicate how that is folded in. Jean, I cannot remember the next slide, and I cannot remember if it's something that you will take on or whether it's something I must speak to.
For you, Leslie.
Thank you. So this is perhaps an example, colleagues, of what is possible if you have the objectives, and the objectives, the 6 listed there, as I indicated, will be the package of the KPA process. If you have that, what does it mean? How should it be interpreted? How can it play out in a performance enhancement process? And what is the nature of KPAs within our work agreement processes? What we did here was to highlight what could be some of the possible, shall I call it, indicators linked to the KPA or KPAs that we will think about today. And later on, we will share some of the other examples. So if it comes, for example, to questions linked to either competencies or the experiences that we have in relation to how we understand values, how values play out, the list that Jean notes there could be possible questions that we can consider, for example, for when we compile a work agreement, or how we understand our roles and functions. Jean, just before you jump to that part, the last part of the previous slide, colleague specifically notes towards how we can, for example, interpret values and how that can be included in a basket of indicators that can align with some of the values and with the KPAs, but we will share a little bit more about that just now. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Right, colleagues. So we're getting, I think, to the crux of the matter as to, and this is how do the KPAs play out for the various job levels. When I saw the Mentimeter results, I just had a brief look. I saw that student diversity and academic transformation were kind of ranked quite highly. So I'm assuming then that quite a number of people in this session work with students. For people who ranked the BBBEE, transformation competencies and universal access, as I said, that does not mean that your answers were incorrect. It means that we have some people in the room as well who will be, who work on a different job level or who work in the PAS environment. And this session is for everybody's information. So the transformation KPAs will work as a process by which it will be on the Oracle system of the institution. The transformation KPA and the SU values KPA are two mandatory KPAs. So people will understand that in their work plans, when they set the KPAs at the beginning of the year, it would be a discussion between them and the manager. What would be your KPA 1, your number 2, and your number 3? And that would vary for the different job roles that we have at the institution. However, for everybody now, transformation and SU values will be a KPA, and then the others will vary as our job roles, as it has in the past. So because Stellenbosch University is committed to transformation, and we explained to you South African higher education is committed to transformation. Our South African Constitution speaks about transformation. So we know this is something that's got to be ingrained in everything that we do for society, everything that we do at our institution, at our place of work. And I do think that Stellenbosch University, I think, Leslie, I speak under correction, that we are the first institution to have such a KPA, where we realize that very often I get people saying to me, but how can you be such a small center working on transformation when transformation is such a big issue? We don't need many people to work as the center of transformation. And that is exactly because transformation is the responsibility of every staff member at the institution. So while we may offer guidance, we may see to it that, you know, the policy gets accepted and gets out there, we can work on the plan. It's every staff member's responsibility to work towards transformation of the institution. So the transformation baskets that we are developing forms part of the performance advancement framework of the institution. And as I said, it's one of the KPAs. So how it works during phase 1, we are busy compiling the performance work plan for every staff member and the personal development plan, where the role KPAs come in. So after you've had your performance, your key performance areas, you've discussed your 3, 4, 5, however many, the SU values and your personal development plan. Under the key performance area, your number 1 KPA is going to be the transformation KPA. How do I advance? Oh, there we go. Right, so the approach to including the transformation KPAs, this is going to be applicable to all staff. As Zetu explained, for post levels 1 to 4, they will be working from 20% upwards towards 25% of their KPA. For everybody else, it will be from 1% up towards 20%. So not don't be concerned about, you know, in my job role, I don't work with transformation, so how am I going to ever get to 20%? So you'll be working from 1% up towards your 20%. But it is for all staff members to have this KPA as on their work plan. The approach has to be sustainable, so we have to see how is it that throughout the year, this KPA, these are the objectives that I've, with my line manager, decided I will be working on this year. This relates to my job role. how will I be able to sustain that throughout the year? The emphasis is on the role of your engagement. So the engagement that you have within the role that you perform at the institution, that is what will be the emphasis. So while some people might have student diversity as number one, you may have had university. Oh my, have I been muted all the time?
No, Jean, only
No,
like
no,
a
no, no, you were
second ago.
fine.
Oh, because, oh, thank goodness, because I only just turned my mic on, so I don't know how this worked. But anyway, good for all of us. So while somebody else might have had student diversity at the top, if you work with universal access, and that is one of maybe two of the objectives that you will place in your KPA, that is perfectly fine, because that will be sustainable for the role that you perform at the institution. Together with your line manager, you will co-populate, maybe even as a team. You will decide in your strategic planning, this is what we as a team will be working towards, and this is how we will do it. It is, of course, not a one size fits all. Someone in your team may work with universal access for 5% or 10%, and for you, it might be 15%. So there is no right or wrong formula for what percentage everybody will work with these objectives. And as I said, it will be on your work agreement in discussion with your line manager. We are working with.
Yes, so
yes, please,
can I
Leslie.
very briefly add, perhaps if you can go back to the previous slide. So colleagues, perhaps just to give you an idea of how it will look in terms of the system and how it will reflect on the system. As HR explained, the performance enhancement type of process will now be guided by an online agreement. The online agreement will have, of course, a set of KPAs that we have in all of our work agreements. What is different now is that one of those KPAs will be transformation. If you click on that KPA, and Jean, please correct me if I'm wrong, if you click on the transformation KPA link, you'll have a list of objectives that
Yes.
you will draw down. You click the objectives most applicable to you. There will be a rating of percentage in relation then to the other KPAs that you will have. And as soon as you click on that particular KPA, and this is the part that will still come, you will have another drop down. That drop down will share a basket of opportunities, but that, as Jean indicated, might have examples. It might be wholly applicable to you. It might be not applicable to you at all. And that's the part that will be co-populated by you and by you in relation to your line manager. Perhaps, Jean, that helps with a bit of a picture, but also correct me if I misinterpret or misshare. Thanks, Jean.
That's all, Leslie. You are completely correct. Thank you for assisting in clarifying that. Okay, so we get to the job clustering. So for the various roles at the institution, the staff member will decide whether or they know whether they are employed as an academic, as administrative support, or as technical support. And when you go into the Oracle system and you open your page, it will, of course, have your name there, and it will also have your job role at the institution. So what I've done here is I've taken some of these job roles and I've just placed them in a sheet here to show you how the various transformation objectives may pertain to various roles. So if we look at executive level will easily probably come to 20-25% because they would work with all 6 of those objectives. If I take myself, for example, in a support environment, I would work with transformation competency, maybe with universal access and a bit with triple B, double E, and maybe I'd get to 10%. Maybe 5% for the transformation KPA in the first year, and then work myself up and see how much further I can take transformation, taking responsibility for transformation at the institution, and how much I become involved. And this would be a discussion between myself and my line manager. And we can see for various roles at the institution, we have various objectives that pertain to specific roles, and they are not a one fits all.
Jean?
Yes, Siobhan?
We have 2 questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to take now or do you want to wait?
Let me just see. I think we are going to wait. I did say that we will deal with questions at the end. Okay. Thank you, Siobhan. Okay, so if we look again at job level, Siobhan, if you could just give us the results. Are you able to, without me closing the PowerPoint, post in as a message what the results were for the Mentimeter? Thank you very much.
Just put it there.
Oh, it's very small.
What is it? The results were first ranked was student diversity.
Yes.
Second was staff diversity. Third was academic transformation. Fourth was transformation competencies. Fifth, universal access. Sixth, broad-based Black economic empowerment.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Siobhan. Okay, so I've taken the three objectives: transformation competency, universal access, the broad-based Black economic empowerment, because these are ones that I feel that I think would spread across many of the roles at the institution. So what happens, as Leslie explained, is that when you open the Oracle system and you are working through your work plan, you will have a description of what transformation competency means. I'm currently building a glossary of terms in one column for the definition of what the transformation competency means, what universal access means, what the triple BEE means, and then next to that, we will have examples that are pre-populated. But this document is not one that's cast in stone, because of course, we have not consulted with every staff member at the institution. So as you grow your role for these transformation objectives, we are going to, by next year, the year after that, this document will also grow as to what people are describing their roles as they relate to the transformation KPAs. So the one that we might have for universal access, you might be doing something that we didn't think of that is for universal access, something that you're doing maybe for students with autism. For example, additional exam time, a different way of assessment, that if you're working in the past environment and you see, oh, here's a student who needs access to the building with a wheelchair, but there is no ramp. So, you know, starting the process of having a ramp built there, that might be something that you would do in 1 year for universal access. If we go to the next slide, this is an example of what a library might look like, or what part of the library might look like. So for the transformation competencies there, we have emotional intelligence. If you choose relationship building and collaboration, for example, then you would see this and then write out what it is that you do for those two parts of the transformation competency. So you don't even have to touch on all of these for to have clicked, as Leslie explained earlier. You will click on the competency, on the objectives that relate to your role, but it doesn't have to be everything. This doesn't have to be the full description of what you do. It could be a part of it, and then you would explain. And that is how we will also build the vocabulary for the institution. Then the job library would give you this to explain to you what the different words mean, and then there will be another column with some examples. If you don't see your example there, the example of what you do for universal access or for triple BEE, that's fine. You will fill it in there, and we are going to build the institution's library from the information that is provided. So the performance advancement process timeline, as we said, the transformation KPAs and the SU values forms part of the performance advancement process timeline. And we started in August 2024. We are now in February 2025. So it is in the process of system design. So while this session may seem a bit premature and early, we want to build the best system that we can for the transformation KPAs. And this is why it's important that you please fill in the feedback form so that we can build what your questions are, what you feel is lacking into a resource guide. So when you have your KPA discussion and you're working with the transformation objectives, you'll have a resource guide that you may use. You will also have the glossary of terms together with the job basket descriptions and the descriptions of what, and the examples of the various objectives, how they may play out for different roles. Yeah, so I would like to, so we have faculty and responsibility center transformation committees in almost every faculty. Thank you, Siobhan. In almost every faculty and every responsibility center. If you don't have one or you don't know who your chair is, please contact me and I will share that information with you. We would like to ensure that staff at all levels, whatever role an SU staff member has, that they have access to information regarding transformation and regarding especially these KPAs. So the ways in which you can access information through CASET, you can email me. Also the transformation committees in your environment, Stellenbosch University website, newsletters, posters. There are telescreens in some environments. You can have chats, just go and ask another staff member, ask a colleague, do you know what transformation is? Do you know how the KPAs are going to work? And if they say no, can email me and ask for us to share the session's recording. Inviting colleagues who don't have access to computers to attend information sessions, sit next to you in your laptop or have a shared screen in a boardroom and attend these sessions. We have sessions on the last Thursday of every month from February until October. And the sessions vary. It's not all going to be HR related or on the transformation KPAs. There are other transformation topics that we talk about, and this too can play in. If you say that I've attended 5 TLN sessions, this plays into your transformation KPA. You will then probably click building my transformation competencies and how you do that and how the TLN session has assisted you in that. So I would like to thank the HR Path project team for allowing me to share 3 of their slides in this process, and also thank Leslie and Zetu for being here and assisting me with answers to any questions. I realize that people have to leave, but please, everybody else who's able and willing, you're welcome to stay on for a chat, answer questions, ask questions until 2:30. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very, very much, Jean. Colleagues, I will also not be here until 2:30, but I'll push and stay as long as possible. Perhaps I can recap and just share the following also as a bit of background, and then just to remind you where we are now and what will be helpful in this session. One is the idea of a transformation KPA is mandated by Council. I think the idea was, well, this is now quite a while ago. The understanding was that there is a number of things happening around transformation. Of course, processes, policies, understandings, change making to a certain degree. You can sense something of the effect, but it very often happens that it is a select few or very particular environments and individuals who drive a number of these processes. And then Council indicated that for us to better understand as a university what happens where, we need to document better, we need to test better and understand on the one side. And on the other hand, we must make sure that we mandate one another so that we can understand our role and so that we can acknowledge colleagues who do a number of transformation related work also through the performance management process. So that is where the idea comes from. Now, any type of evaluative process, whether it be a ranking type process or whether it is a process linked to performance enhancement or performance management, has obvious limits. It's a hard, cold, strict type of process, very formal process, etc. It is not something that in itself and through itself can affect deep deliberate change. But it is a way to couple with other processes and to allow the opportunity for us to be more, to a certain degree, directive and on the other side, to acknowledge more. And in that sense, this institution to go into a very similar direction. Again, mandated by Council. And we acknowledge this. We also indicated in engagements, and that will continue, that the percentage possibilities for colleagues differ. The role of the VC, the role of the departmental heads, the role of the deans, the role of the senior directors, etc., is very different from other roles. So there must be a distinction. And so in this phase, as Jean mentioned, the scale will be from 1% up to then the 20%, and for post levels 1 to 4, higher, 20 in guiding the process. The libraries, I mustn't use the word baskets, I must say libraries. The libraries, colleagues, is a way for us to help you to, with the resource guide, to interpret a particular objective, to understand something of the process, to link the realities of your own work with the possibilities of the objectives, to make sense of the objectives, and to help you to then develop your own set of indicators as part of an institutional library to help others, to help yourself, and in the end for you to pick from that and indicate that, and from my perspective as a manager or as an admin officer or whatever, this applies to me, this doesn't apply to me at all, but I now understand what is meant here. I can now develop my own set of indicators, and that will help me to build my library, and that will then help me to execute my role and or to be acknowledged for the work that I already do. Thank you, Jean and colleagues.
Thank you, Leslie. Leslie, could you respond and put you on the spot to Nina's question? How does one verify what is in one's basket, if not evidence-based? How do we not just pay lip service to these KPAs?
Thank you, Nina. You start off with the most difficult of all questions, but that's okay. That is the tough part. So in any performance management process, the expectation is that you, myself, and my line manager must sit down, indicate how I understand my role, relate my role to a set of KPAs. What do I do? What is the focus? Indicate how I want to be measured. I want to complete a policy review process by September, as an example, and we enter into an agreement around that. So the best vetting point is that between myself and my line manager, I have the opportunity to align what I do for the particular year with my role, and I have the opportunity to indicate how this year should play out, and in the end, how I'm evaluated based on that. It is, of course, not a foolproof process. Now, when it comes to transformation-related indicators and the set of baskets, it might be even more challenging, because here you have the opportunity to say, I have the objective of academic transformation. I assess students differently. I develop new assessment strategies. My curriculum looks very different, or I support students in the co-curricular space to understand something of their developmental journey, their outlook, etc. So it becomes a aspirational slash practical slash very specific experience or role that we have to co-design as an individual with the line manager. And I hope that we'll be able to, in as far as it is possible, I hope that we'll be able to, in that sense, Nina, help each other to understand what evidence-based might mean, how I can prove that I infuse in the co-curricular space something of a transformative experience that allow students to enter the next phase of their lives, etc. But as you know, colleagues, in performance management, we often do 360s, or we often allow the opportunity for other colleagues to reflect on our work. We often ask students to evaluate, and that can all be used as resources, as is the case with performance management in general. I hope that helps, Nina.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Our next question is by Jennifer De Beer. What do you mean by universal access? Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, as I said, we will have a glossary of terms as well, but universal access is removing any barriers for people with disabilities from entering the institution, from benefiting from classes, access. So it's also the removal of cultural and social barriers. So, sorry, not only physical barriers, which is probably the easiest that we can think of, but also the cultural and the social barriers for people with disabilities. Sorry, I have a cough. I'm going to switch off my microphone quickly. Excuse me. Any other questions? I don't see how one.
It's a comment, Jill, from me. It's in relation to the KPA with specific reference to the SU values. We take into cognizance that that kind of a value is a qualitative in nature. So as a result, the employee with their line manager would have a conversation when they are working on their work plans as to how the employee hopes to embody the SU values. And at the end of the cycle, the employee would be able to have a second conversation with the line manager just to explain to what extent have they been able to embody those values. And if they had failed in the process, what were the obstacles that actually prevented them from living the values of the institution? Thanks, Jean.
Thank you, Zetu. Thank you very much for that explanation. It helps a lot. Yes, Jennifer, I suppose it is with many things that we can't change people's hearts and minds with the bean counting. I do think that this kind of process does help make people more aware of things. Very often I find that people are not against transformation or against working towards transformation or doing the things, but that people are actually unaware of what it is that they are doing and how to share their transformative actions. So I suppose it's, the same as how do you know somebody loves you? These are not really, very often it's not tangible things, but I do think we are doing what we can. I'm not sure what else we can do to ensure that transformation takes place, that systemic transformation takes place at the institution. And not that I have all the answers, so if anybody else would like to enter and open such a point as discussion, how do we change people's hearts?
Thanks, Jean.
Jean.
Hello, Shabam.
So Ms. C asked a question on the chat.
Okay.
How will colleagues, particularly those without access to computers, be accommodated when it comes to language used in presentations? That was one question. Then we had Prof. Afrikander, who asked, have deans and HODs already attended such an information session? These are the easier ones.
Yeah, I can respond to that. So part of the PAF process is to do what we call a roadshow to faculties to inform deans and HODs and senior management about how far we are. We've had engagement with the general management, a GMM meeting late last year where we've had their input. And so, yes, anybody could have attended this session, but there are plans to take this further. As I said, we are still in initial stages with this process. I see
Jean,
a hand.
if I may add.
Yes, Leslie?
I may briefly add, absolutely right. So just for colleagues to know, the GMM consists of members of the rectorate, the deans, and the chief and senior directors. We had a meeting earlier this week as well, where we indicated that just that we do this presentation now and we engage with you, and that except for the road shows, Jean, and I think your presentation will be shared, so the timeline you'll have the timelines as well. Except for that, we'll have a special session with individuals and or the full group to talk through the libraries, what is possible, so that colleagues can see and indicate whether it fits the particular faculties or the particular divisions as a way to make sense before the libraries are loaded on the HR system or as part of the process of completing the set of institutional libraries. I must admit that what has been shared here is the first time that it's been shared to this extent. So please also note that we wanted to do it as part of the TLN, and we commit to have broader engagements as part of the PAF process. So the road shows, etc., to the faculties and environments will be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Prof. Thuli?
Thank you, colleagues, for this wonderful opportunity. Firstly, just to congratulate you, the newly recalibrated transformation component. Thank you for this privilege. I just wanted to emphasize the importance of capacitating people to function at this level. If there's going to be any resistance, it's just everyone is pretty much comfortable with the work they do at this stage, and they feel competent. And I found that often people resist change, not so much because they're conservative or anti-transformation. It's just they feel this new thing might make me look or feel incompetent. And therefore, if there's just enough resources and processes that are devoted to helping people to jump into this, I believe there'll be less resistance. And therefore, thank you again for this orientation and hoping there'll be more to hold people's hands into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thuli. Yes, and I think this is the reason that we as CASET, that we're working on the glossary of terms and as many explanations as we can, and also, of course, the availability if anybody has any questions to pose, and also translation of the documents. We've spoken about translating the documents once they are signed off, translating them to the 3 languages. And I know somebody asked a question about these sessions as well, how it's unfortunately not possible to translate everything. And we will, I'm asking Sibulele now if we can please note to contact the Language Center for future translations of these sessions and how we can work around that, because that is a huge part of transforming our institution and making it accessible to as many people as possible. Are there any other questions that I'm missing?
Yes, Jean.
I've tried to answer some of the questions. I wonder if you cannot just remind us of the timeline. That will help a lot. And Andre, it has not been fully unpacked. We hoped that your environment will help us to fully unpack that. You still have the opportunity to do that. Liz has given some feedback on that, but it would be phenomenal if you can help us with that particular objective.
Oh, yes, please. I will contact you, Andre. Thank you for putting yourself forward. I'm sorry, colleagues. I have a frog in my throat suddenly, it seems. Leslie, is this the timeline that you're talking about, or were you talking about the one that... Oh, okay.
Yes, just so that colleagues can get a sense of that as well. Around the rollouts, part of the rollout is, of course, the engagements. There will be a go live. Colleagues, just note that the full implementation, Jean, is not a 2025 implementation. It's a 2026 one. So the process here is to get the system ready, to start to roll out, to test, etc. So that we are fully ready for 26.
Yes. Thank you, Leslie. Anything else that I'm missing, Siobhan and Sibulele?
On the chat.
No, Mr. Nalter says yes.
So there's
correct.
one by Verbeke de Villiers, Jean, just for confirmation. Post levels 1 to 4 is 20 to 25%. And then all other posts.
I think I've answered that one as well in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Vessel asked something that I don't see now.
Yes. Vessel, you are correct. It's a directive from council. Am I right, Leslie?
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Fabulous initiative. It's no question. Thank you, Munira, for that positive comment. Thank Thank you for the positive comments, colleagues. Let me just see. I'm wondering if all faculties, departments are aware of this plan. Mariam Sali. Mariam, as Leslie has indicated, that the deans are part of the GMM meetings that are held. So I think that all faculties and departments should be aware of it. Nina, you have another question?
Yes, I just have a question relating to Prof. Van Eden's comments, because I think this is going to be a recurring reflection from many staff members, is this idea of I'm being asked to do more. And I think Leslie tried to kind of reframe that understanding, but I think it would just be good to have a fuller articulation of it here so that we also feel prepared to respond and engage our colleagues who are going to be asking the same question.
Thank you. I'll attempt to do that, and I know that in one particular faculty there has been engagements on that as well. So colleagues, our work agreements is always set within 100% boundary. That is what you will do annually. That is what you will be assessed on. That is what you commit to. That is your agreement with your employer. It is never 100% plus 20% or 100% plus 10%. I understand that all of us have full roles and that we have a lot of responsibilities that we must conclude and that we commit to. The idea here is that we do things, that we align things, and where necessary do things differently and not additionally. So if you have a set of, for example, research outcomes and teaching outcomes, the idea is that you have the opportunity to think how you teach, what you teach, and what the possible impact of that can be, given the particular objectives. If it's research-based, it is, of course, what the impact of that research is, what it could be, what additional beneficiaries there could be in disseminating research, etc., as a way to open up the possibilities to strengthen change, in a certain sense, also change broader than just an individual or a group or a faculty. So that is the idea. If you already work with staff, you receive staff, for example, in an administrative capacity, it will be around how you receive staff, how you experience how staff and you engage with staff, how that aligns with the institution's values, how welcome do people feel, etc. That is a way to do the 100% that you do differently. If you're a manager that works, for example, on a sports field, it is how you engage with the partners that might also use that field, how you promote the possibility of change among students, how you support students through sport, etc., as a way to fulfill that particular objective. So that is the idea, but I think part of the change making and leading process over the next couple of months will be for us to understand how our roles perhaps already enhance the possibilities of what it means to be an institution through which we transform and an institution that renews itself through transformation. I think that will be must be part of the rollout experience. And then, of course, and this, I think, Andre, is why your question is important, we already have sets of objectives and policies, for example, on teaching and learning. The question is how that aligns, and if indeed, for example, around curriculum renewal, that is included in understanding of academic transformation. It is fully included. That is why we had that conversation right at the beginning. So that is then obviously used as part of that objective to indicate how you already, through what you do, renew and support, and in that sense, transform and enhance transformation. I hope that helps a little bit. I think it's a conversation that if it's environment specific, will also help in understanding, and that phase, I think, will be the crucial phase. You're absolutely right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. I see Ms. Son asking a question, when will the Thursday info sessions start? I do not know of any Thursday info sessions, unless you're talking about these Transformation Learning Network sessions. They are on different topics on the last Thursday of every month, and this one today is the start of it, but they're not info sessions on Transformation KPAs. There are different discussions around issues of transformation at the institution. Does that answer your question, Ms. Son? Maybe Ms. Son's not in the room anymore.
Yes, sorry. Yes, thank you. That is what I meant. I meant the Thursday sessions, not necessarily the information sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to know when, because your advertisement, I also want to mention, didn't come past my office. Someone else had to forward it to me. So I just want to know, how will those sessions be advertised when they do start?
I have a mailing list that I'd inherited and been building over the past year, as interest has grown. So Sibulele will add your name to the list. And by all means, people are welcome to forward all of the information about the sessions to one another. So I do also send it out to the Transformation Committee chairs. I send it to them first for distribution within the faculties and the RCs. So if it doesn't come to you via an email invitation, it should come to you via your Transformation Committee. You are welcome to contact me to find out who your Transformation Committee chairperson is.
Thank you. Yes, I have emailed you already. Thank you.
Okay, pleasure. Willem Waters, in that case, would it not be more efficient to embed the Transformation KPA in all our other KPAs instead of having a separate KPA? It also communicates the message that it must be part of everything that we do. Leslie Ozeto, do you want to attempt to answer that one?
As I almost pressed the other button to say thank you very much. Jean, I think that would be the absolute ideal. If it's part and parcel of everything we do, that would be the ideal state. I mean, we cannot necessarily start with the ideal. So this I see as a process to make sure that it is a focus in what we do and what we do generally. But yeah, it is not the absolute ideal. Perhaps we will reach that ideal.
No, I
And with that
completely.
note, I say goodbye. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Thank you. Thanks for your engagement. I absolutely agree with Leslie on that. In my previous role, I had worked in transformation objectives into all of my various KPAs, into all 4 or 5 of my KPAs. That was the nature of my interest, is transformation. So I tried to do that in all the work that I was doing. So as Leslie indicated, that would be the absolute ideal. But it's not that for everyone. So now if you've been doing that, is it Mr. Waters or Willem? I suppose you now have to pull them out of those KPAs and create another KPA, because we do want to make this an institutional objective to have this transformation KPA, for everybody to be conscious. I think it brings more of a consciousness, brings it to the fore if you have it as a separate KPA. And then maybe 30 or 300 years down the line, we'll be working it into our other KPAs. The ideal, as Leslie said. Sibelele, Siobhan, are there any other questions that I've missed? Andre, please, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So I was just thinking in terms of this idea of an embedded KPA, as Willem suggests, to me, it really makes quite a lot of sense to maybe include that as an option, because for many people, it will be very artificial to now draw out of their different, let's say, responsibilities, a little bit out of teaching, a little bit out of social impact, and create a separate loose standing KPA that's also got to be judged as a separate thing. I don't think it would be bad to have that group together so you know where it is embedded everywhere else. But I mean, maybe you could think of including such an option, because I think for most people, most academics anyway, you are busy with teaching and learning and assessment, research, and social impact. And you would, in the course of your day, typically have transformation competencies in all of those and some actions in all of those. And I can imagine that people might be very frustrated if they now have to pull that out and attach quite an arbitrary percentage and a weighting to that. So if there could be that option, that would be, I think, an ideal for some. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with you, Andre. That would probably be the ideal, but I think for now, we have to work with, what would be the easiest and the most common thing to work with a huge number of staff at the institution. And if it would be easier for 2 people, 20 people reporting to one HOD or one dean doing one thing and 100 doing another, it might not be that easy. So yeah, I do agree that it would be ideal to do it that way. I see there are comments from Prof. Martin Venter and Prof. van Eerden. You're welcome to voice your comments. If you would like to open your microphones.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to mention that when we look at an initiative as expansive as the one that we have or are proposing now, that we should look at it at least with some economic basis in mind. If we're looking to make major changes, we shouldn't expect them to be free. So there will be economic costs to whichever plan we choose to implement. And what I'm looking for is what the university's intention is to offset that cost. Leslie did mention that the intention is not for it to be an additional workload, but even if you just spend time and energy thinking through a problem, it will take time that necessarily has to come from somewhere else. So as nice as it might be, I don't see this being a cost-free endeavor.
Yeah, I suppose it also depends on one's thinking around transformation, and of course also related to one's role, because now I'm working in transformation. I work at the Center for Social Impact and Transformation, and of course it's part of everything that I do. So how I'm going to separate the KPAs, if there was going to be a prize given, it would probably be for all of us who work in this center, because it's 100% of our jobs, and it's not so for everybody. So I completely understand your point of, well, firstly, the point of where does the money come from or go to, in order to work this into everybody's job descriptions. And then, of course, as well, the time, because now if suddenly I have to think of where am I going to fit in an extra 20% if it's not part of my everyday job. But I suppose that's part of what we mean by when we say it needs to become systemic in everything that we do. And then it comes back to Andre's point, should it not be built into all of the other KPAs. It was somebody else's point. Willem, and then Andre agreeing. So yeah. Yes, Prof. van Eden. I hope this is a comment because I can't answer everybody's questions.
Yeah, so I think from my side, there's obviously different views on this in terms of different people from an academic or administrative staff. As an academic, for myself, the class sizes are increasing, more postgrad students, a higher load in terms of requirements for research outputs. There's more talks of third and fourth stream income. So I think all of this adds to the burden on academics, and then there are some systems that really, as I say, is not supporting us that well, all the Sun X's. And so I'm just saying we need to be extremely careful, and the comments from Professor Marinsella about change management, how we do this and how we support staff in terms of how they understand this, is critical. Otherwise, it's going to be seen very negative, and you're going to get a lot of headwinds in terms of implementing it. So yeah, I understand that it's part of what I'm doing anyway, but identifying that and putting it in context of that takes mind space. And that's where the change management needs to come in, is to help people facilitate that mind space to get to the change.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Munira, and then Pratika.
Hi, Jean. Thanks so much for this, for all of the work that's gone into this. I know it must have taken an incredible amount of work and hours. I'm hearing a lot of anxiety about this, adding this into our workload and adding more. And I think perhaps the problem is in the way that we understand transformation. Now, transformation can be a very scary word if you've been doing, if you've been at the university for a very long time. But I actually think when you look at how you've defined, the various objectives and given examples of what we are doing, we're doing that anyway. We're doing curriculum renewal. We're decolonizing our theoretical sources. We're trying to include all students. That's all transformation. So perhaps starting with that perspective, and looking at what are people already doing towards transformation. And let's reward you for that. Let's put it in your KPAs so that you can actually be recognized for all of those initiatives that you're taking to make the university better and more inclusive. As a reframe, I'm not sure if that will help to make it more palatable to people who are so anxious about it.
Yeah, thank you, Munira. I also realized many years ago when I was working with decolonization in health sciences and talking around those issues, so many people said, oh, I'm not interested in decolonization. I don't have time for this. And then you look at what they've been doing with textbooks and what the students are doing on the community platforms. And you realize this lecturer has been doing decolonization for so many years and not been calling it that. So yeah, it is important to look. And that also is also why I think, if we look at the what transformation competencies are and the definitions, just that people haven't had the definitions to know that they have actually been doing it and embedding it in their work. Thank you for that comment. Pratika, you're welcome.
So Jean, I was part of the transformation committee in our faculty.
Yes.
And when we discussed the implementation of transformation in the performance agreements, we asked the question, what will be the transformation activities? So at least within the Faculty of Engineering, we've been putting together a list to define what, as Humaira says, what is transformation. So that could be persons involved in the transformation committee, other persons, academics involved in social impact activities, and simply looking at curriculum transformation, so maybe the transformation officers or committees need to work in defining that list to support line managers, because I think that's where the anxiety is coming through. How do we establish some sort of consistency in what is the transformation measures, and will we avoid problems later on. So I think that will be very helpful. In going forward, we are already discussing these performance agreements for the previous year. So maybe we could also start those discussions in this new phase. That was just a recommendation.
Ah, okay. I'm noting what you are saying, Pratika, and I've noted some things that recommendations other people have also made. So thank you very much. Your comments and your questions are really, really valuable, also for those of us who are working with these documents. Of course, the documents will also be shared later this year with faculty. So when you see those emails coming through, please don't ignore them, because this work is going to affect all of us. It is for all of us, building a better institution, an institution that gets into the news for more positive than negative things happening. And I would like to thank you for attending the session, for the amazing interest, for the comments, the emojis, for just listening also and taking on. Please feel free to email me any suggestions, any points you would like to iterate, and any words that you think might need to be included in the glossary that I'm building. By all means, do that. It's really valuable to build together with the people who are going to be affected by the performance advancement process. And yeah, just thank you again for your presence and your engagement. And with that, bye-bye, everybody. Have a good rest of your afternoon. And I really hope the weekend comes around fast. Bye. Thank you, Siobhan and Sibulele, for your assistance.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.